spattered them with ketchup and wore them around his neck. And I had not actually read this case in my criminal law class. He read it in his. So this was my introduction to the case, was actually my friend dressing as the cannibal.
What were conditions like aboard that dinghy?
They were terrible. There was a leak at first, and the first night there was a shark that was ramming them from underneath that they thought would capsize this tiny dinghy. And then the big problem was that there was really no food and no water, and they were slowly dying of thirst and starving to death. And there was no land. They weren't seeing any ships passing, so they were in quite a spot.
Now, as you write, the custom of the sea, to use that phrase, would be to draw lots to see which crewmate would be sacrificed to help others survive. Why didn't the captain, Thomas Dudley, do that?
He had proposed it initially, but he couldn't get his mate or anyone else to go along with that. And then he switched to this idea of let's just kill the cabin boy. I wouldn't give him too much credit, though, for first offering to draw lots, because as I learned in my research, even when they drew lots, it turns out they weren't really doing that fairly. Somehow, no matter, how they drew the lots, it always ended up being the cabin boy or the one enslaved person on the ship or the one black person or the one Spaniard on a ship of British sailors. They always ended up choosing someone at the bottom of the hierarchy to be eaten.
Captain Dudley, I made note of these words, tells the first mate, who has 5 children and a wife, I have 3, meaning children and a wife. Would it not be better that we should kill the boy Parker in order that 3 lives might be saved?
Yes. He was making a kind of rough utilitarian argument. He was saying, this is the better thing to do. This isn't just murder. This is killing one person to save 3 lives. This is a good thing, right?
Well, tell us about the utilitarianism that seems to be at the heart of the argument.
So people like Captain Dudley thought, if you can save 3 lives by killing one person, that is worth doing. And utilitarianism is this idea created by Jeremy Bentham, the philosopher, who said, that which is the greatest good for the greatest number is the moral thing to do. But not everyone agrees with that, and even not everyone in that lifeboat agrees with that. There are other people who say that you don't do wrong things, you don't commit murder, you don't kill an innocent person, even if you can make some argument that it would contribute to the greater good. And in that lifeboat was a man named Brooks, who said from the beginning, I do not want to kill, I do not want to be killed, and he would not participate in killing the cabin boy because he just thought it was wrong. So he was the anti-utilitarian person in the lifeboat.
Why were they surprised when they arrived back in the UK that they were going to be prosecuted?
Well, what had changed is the Victorian-era reformers had really changed all of England since Queen Victoria took over earlier in the century. They had passed laws that extended the right to vote to the middle class. They had passed laws that protected factory workers, women, children, animals from abuse. They were looking around and trying to make England more modern and better in every way. And eventually, by 1884, they looked at the custom of the sea and they said, this thing about you kill the cabin boy and eat him, this no longer feels right to us.
What was their necessity defense argument at trial?
So the necessity defense in law is a defense that says, okay, there was a law broken, but I broke the law in order to avoid a greater harm. So an example of that would be if you have a sick baby and you need to get the baby to the hospital and you don't have a car and your neighbor has left his keys in the car. If you take his car to get your baby to the hospital and you're charged with auto theft, you could say, no, it was to save the baby's life. That might work. The question in this case was, can you ever plead necessity to murder? Is it ever acceptable to say, I killed this person because it avoided a greater harm?
And why wasn't the court convinced?
The Lord Chief Justice, who ended up handing down the decision, was one of these Victorian reformers. He did not like what went on in this lifeboat. He didn't like it in many ways. He didn't like the fact that it was the people in power choosing the cabin boy. He didn't like, they had something called the cult of the child in the Victorian era. They loved children. That's when like Alice in Wonderland and Oliver Twist were written. They didn't like that the adults were killing the child in the boat. So he didn't like any of it, and he did not believe in the necessity defense. He worried that the devil cited necessity to excuse his sins. So he did not believe that murder was ever justified, and he did not think that this was anything other than murder.
The Queen versus Dudley and Stevens was a landmark case in the UK. Why is it taught in law school today in the US?
Well, fascinatingly, I was able to read some of the cases before 1884 in America where we actually had the necessity defense and even allowed it for murder. There was a case in which a sailor began throwing people off of a boat that was in trouble and had too many people on it, and the judge in that case, who was actually a Supreme Court justice sitting in a trial court by designation, said, yeah, you can do that under the right circumstances. So we had the necessity defense for homicide. After this case, that began to change, and now the majority rule in America is that you can never plead necessity to a murder charge, although there are some jurisdictions that allow it. You know, law scholars would say that it's because of Dudley versus Stevens, even though that's a British case, that changed how America thinks of our law of murder.
And you believe this case raises some very pertinent questions for our future, for example, with self-driving cars.
That's exactly right, because there are many contexts in which we need to make this decision. Is it ever acceptable to sacrifice an innocent person to save more lives? And we need to literally program our AI and program our self-driving cars. Well, what do you program a self-driving car to do if it can save the 4 lives in the car by swerving and hitting a pedestrian? You know, the utilitarians would say, sure, 4 versus 1, you do it. But other people are saying, and scholars actually are writing about self-driving cars in this way, saying, no, the pedestrian is an innocent, he's uninvolved, he has nothing to do with the car. You don't get to take his life for some calculation that it will save other lives.
So this is a question that's still with us, isn't it?
It will always be with us, because we always have to decide about these utilitarian calculations, and we need them sometimes. Obviously, when we're deciding how much money to spend on highway safety, you have to make a calculation. If we spend X number of dollars, it will save Y lives. But the more it's about sacrificing a particular life, you know, of a pedestrian or, say, of a cabin boy, we need to think long and hard. And I do think that the Lord Chief Justice's opinion is a great guide to that, and a great reason to push back against this idea that everything can be calculated. And as long as we can make a mathematical argument for why your life should be taken away, we can take it away.
Adam Cohen's new book is Captain's Dinner. Thank you so much for being with us.
It was my pleasure.
This is Weekend Edition from NPR News. I'm Scott Simon.
Support for NPR comes from the station and from Eric and Wendy Schmidt through the Schmidt Family Foundation, working toward a healthy, resilient, secure world for all. On the web at theschmidt.org. From Jarl and Pamela Mohn, focusing on civil liberties, foster youth, public radio, and the arts. And from the Walton Family Foundation, working to create access to opportunity for people and communities by tackling tough social and environmental problems. More information is at waltonfamilyfoundation.org.
Good morning, and thanks for spending part of your day with listener-supported Michigan Public. I'm Christopher Johnson. The shenanigans, the tomfoolery, the fun of Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me is next. Are you ready for the quizzes?
Is Japan on your travel bucket list? Hi, I'm Wendy Turner, Executive Director of Michigan Public. Next year, I'll be leading a 12-day journey through Japan where centuries-old temples meet neon skylines. We'll experience Tokyo, Kyoto, Hiroshima, Osaka, and more, riding the famous bullet trains, tasting incredible food, and discovering the heart of this remarkable country. Join our free information session on Monday, November 24th at 7 p.m. Sign up at michiganpublic.org/travel.
In the weather forecast for today, partly cloudy around the region. Highs will be in the low to mid 40s. Michigan Public is WUOM 91.7 Ann Arbor and Detroit, WFUM 91.1 Flint, WRSX 91.3 Port Huron, WLNZ 89.7 Lansing, and WEGR 104.1 in Grand Rapids. Online, you can find Michigan Public stories, perspectives, and events that we hope you'll attend by going to michiganpublic.org. It's 10 o'clock.
From NPR and WBEZ Chicago, this is Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, the NPR News Quiz. I'm Bill Curtis.
And I'm Peter Sagal. This week, a remarkable record was set for longevity in the NBA. Somebody playing for so long, his first points were scored in a peach basket. We'll ask who apparently doesn't ever want to have to wear long pants on the job, plus why there will be a black market in Bucatini, and the owners of the celebrated Russin Daughters in New York come by for a nosh. All that plus Bill Curtis looks forward to the distant day of his own retirement.
Looking forward to watching my grandchildren argue about dogs versus cats versus raccoons.
We'll settle the debate on our quiz coming up right after this hour's news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene is stepping down in January, a move that's raising new questions about the direction of the Republican Party's hard right wing. Her departure follows months of friction with President Trump and controversy over the release of the Epstein files. Alex Helmick from member station WABE in Atlanta reports.
The Republican Congresswoman has recently become a critic of the president on a number of issues, from his initial stance on the release of the Epstein files to foreign affairs. That led Trump to call her a traitor, saying he would support a primary challenger against her in her conservative Northwest Georgia district. Here's Greene in a more than 10-minute video posted online.
I do not want my sweet district to have to endure a hurtful and hateful primary against me by the president that we all fought for, only to fight and win my election while Republicans will likely lose the midterms.
Georgia's Governor Brian Kemp will have to set a special election date within 10 days of Greene's resignation to replace her. For NPR News, I'm Alex Helmick in Atlanta.
The G20 summit opened today in Johannesburg, where all the country's members voted to adopt a joint declaration after the conference wraps up on Sunday, even though the United States is boycotting the event after falsely accusing South Africa of persecuting its white minority. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa praised the move as an early success.
The adoption of the declaration from the summit sends an important signal to the world that multilateralism can and does deliver.
The leaders of Britain, France, and other countries thank South Africa for its work as chair. The U.S. Supreme Court is allowing Texas to use its recently redrawn map of congressional districts for now. NPR's Hansi Lowong reports it's the latest move in the gerrymandering fight led by President Trump to try to keep Republicans in control of the House.
A final decision from the Supreme Court may come as soon as Monday. If the court allows Texas to use a contested map for the midterm election, Republicans may be able to pick up 5 more seats in the U.S. House. The lower court had blocked that map after finding its challengers are likely to prove in a trial that the map is an unconstitutional racial gerrymander. That's because multiple top Republican officials made public statements suggesting they passed it to eliminate existing districts where Black and Latino voters together make up the majority. But Texas tells the Supreme Court that lawmakers were not motivated by race and were focused on drawing new districts that are more likely to elect Republicans. Time is running out to finalize Texas's map for the midterms. The state's candidate filing deadline is about 2 weeks away. Hansi Lowong, NPR News.
This is NPR News in Washington.
With Michigan Public News, I'm Christopher Johnson. Oakland University is closing as emergency repairs get underway that will keep the campus closed until next month. Michigan Public's Steve Carmody reports.
Repairs are needed to the high-temperature hot water pipe system that supplies heat to multiple buildings on the OU campus. The closure is forcing in-person classes to be canceled next week, though some professors may take their lessons online. Oakland University is the 6th largest four-year college in Michigan with roughly 16,000 students. I'm Steve Carmody.
Some Michigan schools are identified as needing state support to improve their student outcomes. Michigan Public's Sneha Dandapani has more.
This year, 68 Michigan schools have improved enough to leave state academic oversight. Yvonne Dixon is with the Michigan Department of Education, which helps fund support for some of these schools. She's excited about this.
68 exiting, that shows substantial progress by our schools, that they're making some incremental growth and changes.
The state government is part of an accountability system that's required by the federal government for underperforming schools. While 68 schools are exiting, 113 Michigan schools are on the list for state support. I'm Sneha Dandapani.
Some tiny turtles are heading off to college. Calvin University and John Ball Zoo in Grand Rapids are enrolling 11 baby spotted turtles into a program protecting species that are threatened in Michigan. They're now the responsibility of Calvin University biology students like Jocelyn Nees. She says she's excited to have the animal handling experience required for veterinary school applications and get a leg up by working with the turtles.
If you could get 300 hours doing dogs and cats, that's great, but they're also looking for reptiles or exotics too, and this is a really unique experience because it's really hard to get those exotic animal hours.
Students will raise the turtles, monitor growth, and place trackers on them before releasing them into the wild next April. This is Michigan Public News. Find more news and analysis online at michiganpublic.org.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the estate of Joan B. Kroc, whose bequest serves as an enduring investment in the future of public radio and seeks to help NPR produce programming that meets the highest standards of public service in journalism and cultural expression.
The following program was taped in front of an audience of real live people.
From NPR and WBEZ Chicago, this is Wait, Don't Tell Me, the NPR News Quiz. I'm the voice so intoxicating you need to stop operating heavy machinery. Bill Curtis, and here is your host at the Studebaker Theater in the Fine Arts Building in Chicago, Illinois, Peter Sagal.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, everybody. We got a great show for you today, but first, Thanksgiving is coming up on Thursday, and we want to take this opportunity to remind you, you have just a few days left to come up with a single thing to be thankful for this year. How about K-pop Demon Hunters? That was pretty good, right? We'll think of something. One thing you could be thankful for every year is Bagels and Lox, which is why we'll be talking to the owners of Russ and Daughters, a legendary Jewish food shop in New York's Lower East Side. But first, we want to serve you up some tidbits from the news. Give us a call at 1-888-WAIT-WAIT. That's 1-888-924-8924. Let's welcome our first listener contestant. Hi, you're on Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me.
Hi, this is Tracy Kinchelow from Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh, I love Louisville. What do you do there?
I'm a middle school teacher.
Oh my God. You are the bravest of the brave to voluntarily enter a middle school.
What grade do you teach, Tracy? 6, 7? Which one?
Oh my gosh. Today was the 67th day of school.
Oh no, I'm so sorry.
You're a saint.
Well, welcome to our show, Tracy. Let me introduce you to our panel this week. First up, her comedy album, Yell Joy, is available on Blonde Medicine and your favorite streaming platform. It's Joyelle Nicole Johnson.
Hi, Tracy.
Next, a contributor to CBS Sunday Morning and host of the Audible original Envy Enlightened, it's Faith Salie.
Hi, Tracy. I have 2 middle schoolers, so thank you for your service.
And we are delighted to welcome back to our show comedian and author of Is It Hot in Here or Am I Suffering for All Eternity for the Sins I Committed on Earth? It's Zach Zimmerman.
Hi, Tracy. I'm not allowed around middle schools anymore.
Well, Tracy, welcome to the show. You're going to play Who's Bill this time. Bill Curtis is going to read you 3 quotations from this week's news. If you can correctly identify or explain just 2 of them, you'll win our prize. Any voice from our show you might choose for your voicemail. Are you ready to go?
I think so.
Okay, your first quote is from a 40-year-old NBA superstar right after making sports history this week.
That just made my back hurt.
So, what Los Angeles Laker has now played in more NBA seasons than anyone else ever?
I would love to be an NBA fan, but the season is entirely too long.
Well,
was it LeBron James?
It was LeBron James, yes. On Tuesday night, LeBron James broke an NBA record when he started his 23rd season in the league. I know you were worried I was going to say on Tuesday night, LeBron James broke both of his hips. But this is how long he has been playing. When LeBron was a rookie, many of his current opponents were not yet born.
Oh
my gosh.
It's absolutely true. He's going to play a team this week that has 7 people on it that were not born in his rookie season. It must be so frustrating for LeBron when those younger players don't understand his Seinfeld-based trash talk references. Like when he goes up to block a dunk and shouts, "No soup for you."
That's funny because LeBron is 40, and as a 44-year-old, I would just like to say he should probably quit soon because he is about to go through perimenopause.
You know what? Let's just slap some estrogen patches on him and give him another 5 years.
Absolutely.
I hope he stays in the game for as long as possible, because as not a sports fan as well, Tracy, he's one of the ones I know.
Yes.
So the longer he sticks around, I can stay relevant.
Yeah. It's funny because he's old, but do you know he has like a handshake for every person he has ever met?
Like a different handshake?
Yes, and they're elaborate.
That how
He's
could
going up and
everybody?
down.
He must have met a lot of people. He's 40 years old.
Yeah, they have a compilation of this on the internet of LeBron giving different handshakes, and the handshakes are like 20, 30 seconds long. So I think he's staving off dementia with these handshakes.
All right, here is your next quote.
Utility freaks are scrambling.
That was New York Magazine talking about news that tariffs may soon result in terrible shortages of fusilli and all Italian what?
Pasta?
Yes, pasta. According to the Wall Street Journal, quote, Italian pasta is poised to disappear, which is also what I say when I sidle up to a big bowl of fettuccine Alfredo. Apparently, this is because there's going to be big tariffs that are going to hit on Italian pasta. We don't know why the U.S. government is messing with the price of pasta. That's traditionally the mafia's job. But the tariff is seen as a present to the American pasta industry, right? Which explains why at the big state dinner this week, the president was seated right next to Chef Boyardee.
What's the Olive Garden going to do? Will the never-ending pasta bowl end?
Well, but they're good old American pasta.
Yeah.
So the bottomless.
I love that you thought Olive Garden got their pasta from Italy.
They have a school.